Today's video is sponsored by the Ridge wallet, which achieved great success on Kickstarter and has now sold over 250,000 wallets worldwide. The wallets are sleek and minimalistic, allowing you to carry everything you need without all of the clutter. My personal favorite is the titanium gunmetal wallet, as I really love the smart titanium design, but there are many different designs to choose from, and all wallets also come with RFID blocking, thanks to the titanium, carbon or aluminium metal plates, which will stop your card details from being stolen. Get 10% off today with free worldwide shipping by going to ridgewallet.com/censoredgaming or by checking out the link in the description. Marvel's Spider-Man franchise has recently seen a huge wave of critically acclaimed offerings for fans, ranging from the new PlayStation Spider-Man game that's already gone on to become Sony's 7th best-selling PS4 game of all time, the hit movie last year that's now the 2nd best-selling Spider-Man film to date, and soon there will also be the highly anticipated animated movie Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is promised to conceptually and visually break new ground for the superhero genre. This now makes it a good time to take a look at the franchise and some of the ways it has been portrayed in different countries around the world. And with that notion, today we'll be taking a look at the Spider-Man series in Japan. The land of the rising sun actually has a long history with the famous red web swinger, and at times a rather distinct take on the lovable hero. One of the most notable of these is the Japanese live-action TV series from the late 70s, titled simply Spider-Man. The show was the result of a deal between Marvel and the Japanese production company Toei. The deal allowed the two companies to exchange IPs and use them however they liked for a contract length of 3 years. This resulted in a show that was vastly different to the US material and tweaked into something that was seen as more appealing to a Japanese audience. For instance, giant robots were all the rage in Japan back then, and so the creators decided to give Spider-Man a giant robot that he would summon and pilot to fight off enemies. The robot, dubbed Leopardon, would transform from Spider-Man's spacecraft, which was another new addition for this show, and boasted such features as the Arm Rocket, a flying rocket punch capable of destroying walls with up to 5 feet of thickness. It also comes equipped with a special sword called the Sword Vigor. The blade is often used as a climactic finishing attack, in a move where Spider-Man will triumphantly throw the sword through the air and destroying even the most formidable foes in just one blow. Another change that was made to appeal more to Japanese audiences was giving the show an extraterrestrial origin. Rather than being bitten by a radioactive spider, Japan's Spider-Man is injected with an alien race's blood after finding a fallen UFO that had crash landed to Earth. The alien is the last surviving warrior of Planet Spider, and it had come to Earth to defeat Professor Monster and the Iron Cross Army. These are a different type of alien and are the show's main villains. Not only did they kill the rest of Planet Spider's inhabitants, but they also killed Spider-Man's father, who also went to investigate the fallen UFO. This makes the show also a bit of a revenge story, and the presentation is often very dramatic and over the top. When Spider-Man faces the enemy in each episode, he will introduce himself while performing dramatic poses with lots of freeze frames and jump cuts. Spider-Manね。物言わぬ動物の愛に泣く男、スパイダーマン。The Japanese Spider-Man will also often shout out attack names when using his different web attacks, which shoot out from the Spider Bracelet, a bracelet worn around Spider-Man's left wrist. Not only is the bracelet responsible for the webs, but it also has a number of other cool features, like a homing device that can summon not only the spacecraft that transforms into Spider-Man's giant robot, but also the Spider Machine GP7, Spider-Man's flying car, which is equipped with machine guns and missile launchers inside its bonnet. Speaking of vehicles, the Japanese version of Spider-Man no longer works as a photojournalist, but is instead a professional motorcycle racer. Spider-Man's catchphrase is no longer "It's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man" either, but is instead the much darker "The Emissary from Hell Spider-Man." This line was even referenced in the Japanese version of the new Spider-Man PS4 game. When Spider-Man uses his hologram gadgets in the Japanese version of the game, the hologram will taunt criminals with various lines of dialogue, with one of these being the same catchphrase from the show. Spider-Man! The show would also get the approval of creator Stan Lee, who would later say that he was very impressed with the Japanese take of the franchise. It would also even go on to become canon in the Spider-Man universe, with both the Japanese Spider-Man as well as his giant robot appearing in issues of the 2014 comic book series Spider-Verse. Plus, it would ultimately lead to Toei, the show's producers, being inspired to create Super Sentai, a show that is similar in nature with its fusion of things like live action and giant robots, and which would eventually be adapted in Western markets to become Power Rangers. So yes, the Japanese Spider-Man is actually a big reason why Power Rangers would eventually be created, as well as other shows like it. The Japanese TV series would ultimately have 41 episodes released alongside a movie that's been re-released over the years in VHS and DVD box sets. It also gave birth to a lot of successful merchandise, and for a period of time, all episodes from the show were even broadcast in English on Marvel's website. Its over-the-top nature is very unique, and this has led to it being fondly remembered by fans on both sides of the ocean, rather than fading away into obscurity. However, the live-action show isn't the only Japanese version of Spider-Man. In fact, there was actually a Japanese manga version of Spider-Man that actually predates the Japanese show by a number of years. The manga was originally published in Japan from January 1970 to September 1971 in the monthly Shonen magazine, and was a result of Marvel again trying to expand their reach in other markets. Whilst at first the manga was kept more comparable to the Western source material, albeit somewhat darker in tone, the manga was receiving low sales. This led to the writer being replaced after the 6th story and things changing drastically. Following stories would start to contain much more violent, nihilistic and sexual themes. This version of Spider-Man has a very depressing outlook on life and his powers. At the end of one issue, he even throws his costume away altogether, calling himself an egotist and hypocrite, and that if he continues being Spider-Man, he might make the same mistakes the kangaroo made. From there on, the costume is rarely seen again. At one point, he allows himself to be viciously beaten by Yakuza thugs, refusing to use his powers on ethical grounds. Blood, death and gruesome imagery is frequent. This Japanese Spider-Man also has a rather dark side. Whilst he tries to keep this bad side of him suppressed, he will fantasize about what it would be like to use his powers for other purposes. For instance, when stuck in a traffic jam, he goes on a 7-page fantasy sequence, imagining flipping all of the other cars over and clearing the way. You then see Spider-Man gazing upon the dead civilians and carnage, with a surviving woman in despair calling him a murderer, and Spider-Man asking himself what has he done. One plot point involves an attempted rape of a woman by a group of masked thugs. More than a dozen pages are devoted to showing the woman trying to flee and having her clothes torn off and then being forced to the ground, where one of the men gets on top of her. Spider-Man eventually rescues her, but with the grim nature of the novel, the woman, instead of thanking him, mistakes him for one of the attackers and runs away, calling out for help. He is then blamed for the attack by the people around him and branded a pervert, leading to even more depression in the main character. The manga also contains many other adult themes. For instance, at one point Spider-Man is trying to study but gets distracted and begins to masturbate, fantasizing about chasing his girlfriend along the beach and tearing off her clothes. Needless to say, a lot of this is a vastly different take on the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man seen in the West. The manga actually was translated and released by Marvel for English audiences though, but with several stories missing and many adult scenes removed or censored. The English manga was published across 31 issues from December 1997 to April 1999, but was then cancelled for unknown reasons. There have also been other Japanese versions of Spider-Man, such as the more recent Spider-Man J released in 2004, which was again only really similar to the US Spider-Man in name and costume. This manga was much more suited for child audiences and featured a cuter, chibi-styled Spider-Man who would rarely be seen without his costume, would face various animal-themed enemies in a simple Monster of the Week type format. Needless to say, the US Spider-Man products have also been translated and released in Japan, where, like the West, they are also very popular. However, these make a few good examples of how Spider-Man has at times been changed for the Japanese market, believing this will appeal more to Japanese audiences. What do you think about these Japanese versions of Spider-Man, and what would you like us to take a look at next? Please let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and please consider subscribing if videos on regional differences like this are something you are interested in. Until next time, thank you for watching.